We need to talk about what you owe us. My father didn't say hello. He didn't knock. He just slammed a thick manila folder onto my glass coffee table, shattering the silence of my apartment. Behind him, my mother and sister stood in my entryway, looking at me not with love, but with calculation. They had used an emergency key to break into my home, and the audacity in the room was so thick I could taste it. Before I tell you what was in that folder and why it made me physically sick, drop a comment and let me know where you're listening from and what time it is for you right now. I want to see how far this story travels. I didn't scream. I didn't ask how they got in. My phone was already in my hand. I opened my smart home app. Delete user parents. Delete user spare key. The lock on the door beeped softly, a digital confirmation that once they walked out of this apartment, they were never getting back in. It was a small sound, but it felt like a gavel dropping. Open it, my mother said, her voice trembling with that specific pitch she used when she wanted to play the victim. See what your selfishness actually costs. I flipped the folder open. It wasn't a lawsuit. Not yet. It was a spreadsheet. Rows and columns printed on crisp white paper, detailed down to the cent. The title made me blink. Cost of raising Caitlin years 0 to 18. I ran my finger down the list. Diapers. Formula. A prorated share of the mortgage for my childhood bedroom. Utilities. Dental copays. There was even a line item for emotional labor and parenting time, billed at $20 an hour. At the bottom, a bold figure stared back at me. $500,000. Plus interest. My name is Caitlin. I'm 24 years old and I build brands for a living. I understand value. I understand leverage. And looking at that piece of paper, I understood exactly what I was to them. I wasn't a daughter. I was a portfolio. You're successful now, my father said, his voice steady and reasonable, like he was discussing a merger rather than extortion. You built this business on the foundation we provided. Food, shelter, safety. That wasn't free, Caitlin. It was an investment. And now that the asset has matured, it's time to pay dividends. I looked at him and suddenly the picture cleared. The anger didn't hit me hot. It hit me cold. They genuinely believed this. They didn't see themselves as thieves. They saw themselves as investors collecting an overdue return. Karen was the high-risk stock that had crashed. The failed influencer, the drain on their resources. I was the hedge. I was the safe bet they had ignored for 2 decades, leaving me to grow quietly in the dark until I started paying out. They weren't ashamed of demanding $500,000 for doing the bare minimum required by law. They felt entitled to it. In their minds, my success wasn't mine. It was simply the return on investment they were owed for keeping me alive. You want $500,000, I said, my voice flat. For raising me? It's fair, my mother said, wiping a dry eye. We sacrificed so much. And look at you. You have so much more than you need. Why are you so greedy? Karen stepped forward, picking up a glass vase from my shelf and inspecting it with a sneer. It's not just the money, Caitlin. It's the equity. You used Mom's credit card when you were 16 to buy that first domain name. We checked the records. That makes this family property. We want 50%. Or we sue you for everything. I looked from the spreadsheet to my father's expectant face. They thought I would break. They thought I would write a check just to make the hurt stop. They forgot who they were talking to. No, I said. My father's face turned a shade of purple I hadn't seen since I was a teenager. Excuse me. No, I repeated, closing the folder. I'm not paying you a dime. And get out of my house. My mother gasped. We tried to be nice, she hissed, her mask of sadness slipping to reveal the venom underneath. We tried to handle this like family. Now we do it the hard way. They stood there, fuming in my entryway, and for a second I felt like I was 16 again. Invisible. The spare part in the family machine. But then I looked around at my loft. The steel beams, the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city rain, the business award sitting quietly on my bookshelf, and the feeling vanished. I wasn't 16. I was the architect of my own life, and they were just trespassing on property they couldn't afford. We tried to be nice? I repeated, my voice cold. Is that what you call ignoring me for 6 years? It wasn't an exaggeration. That was the strategy one had perfected. Silence. While Karen was broadcasting every second of her life on social media, chasing clout, failing at 3 different lifestyle brand launches funded entirely by my father's retirement savings, I was working in the dark. I learned supply chain logistics while they were applauding Karen for learning a TikTok dance. I paid off my student loans while they were buying her a new car for trying her best at community college. They didn't look at me because I didn't glitter. I was just the background noise, the hum of the refrigerator, reliable and easily ignored. That anonymity was my shield. I built a 7-figure brand without them knowing it existed because I knew the second they saw value, they would try to extract it. And I was right. We saw the list. Karen spat, her eyes darting around my apartment like she was appraising items for an estate sale. Forbes. 30 under 30. That should have been me, Caitlin. I'm the creative one. You stole my aesthetic. You stole my whole vibe. I almost laughed. I sell industrial home decor, Karen. Your vibe is pink Pilates mats and iced coffee. We aren't even in the same galaxy. It doesn't matter, Andrew interrupted, stepping between us. He looked smaller than I remembered, diminished by the reality of my success. The point is, you did this behind our backs. You used family resources, our time, our roof, to build a private fortune. That's deception. And now you're going to make it right. I don't owe you a future, I said. And I definitely don't owe you a past. I walked to the door and held it open. The wind from the hallway was cold, but the air inside my apartment felt colder. Leave. No. Or I call the police and show them the footage of you breaking and entering. I assume you don't want that on your record, Dad. Not with your blood pressure. Bella's face hardened into a mask of pure, distilled venom. She walked past me, stopping just inches from my face. She smelled like expensive perfume in desperation. You think you're untouchable because you have money now, she whispered. But you forget who taught you how to fight. We tried to do this quietly, Caitlin. We tried to be civil. But if you want to be treated like a stranger, we can do that. Just remember, strangers sue. Get out, I said. They filed out, Karen dragging her feet, shooting one last envious look at my office setup. Andrew didn't look back. As the door clicked shut and the smart lock engaged, sealing my sanctuary, I didn't feel safe. I felt the vibration of an approaching train. They weren't going away. They were just regrouping. I didn't sleep that night. I spent it auditing my own servers, checking for breaches, waiting for the other shoe to drop. It dropped on Friday morning. Black Friday was 3 days away. My biggest launch of the year, a new line of modular steel shelving, was queued up. Inventory was stocked. Ads were running. I logged into my business banking dashboard to approve a final payment to my manufacturer. Access denied. I blinked. I refreshed the page. Account status, frozen. Code 44B. I called the bank immediately. Ms. Anderson, the representative said, her voice clipped and suspicious. We received a court order this morning regarding a pending lawsuit for promissory estoppel and unjust enrichment. There is also a flag from the IRS regarding potential asset concealment. Until this is resolved, all accounts are locked. I dropped the phone. They didn't just sue me. They nuked me. A lawsuit takes months. A freeze takes seconds. They knew exactly what they were doing. They weren't trying to win in court. They were trying to starve me out. If I couldn't pay my manufacturer by Monday, I lost the inventory. If I couldn't pay for the ads, the launch failed. If the launch failed, I was insolvent. My phone lit up. A notification from Instagram. Karen. She had posted a video titled, "The Truth About My Sister." I watched it numb. She was crying, perfectly lit, no makeup, voice breaking just right. It's hard when someone you love steals your ideas and cuts you out. We just want her to come home. We just want our family back. The comments were already rolling in. Sympathy for her. Hatred for the cold, corporate sister who abandoned her family. My chest tightened. I couldn't breathe. I was drowning in a sea of red notifications and declined transactions. My business, my life, my freedom. It was all evaporating because Andrew and Bella decided to pull the plug. My phone rang again. It was my mother. I stared at the screen, letting it ring until it went to voicemail. Then I listened. "Caitlin," she sobbed, her voice thick with fake concern. "We saw the accounts were frozen. I'm so sorry it came to this. But we can fix it. Just sign the agreement. Give Karen her share. We can call the lawyers off today. Please. Don't make us destroy you." That was the moment the fear died. It was replaced by something colder, sharper. Clarity. They weren't family. They were terrorists. And you don't negotiate with terrorists. I wiped my face. I picked up my phone and dialed a number I had been saving for an emergency I hoped would never come. "Miles," I said when he answered. "I need to hire you. Now." "What's the situation?" His voice was gravel and steel. "My parents just froze my assets 3 days before Black Friday. They want me to settle." "Do you want to settle?" "No," I said. "I want to bury them." Be at my office in 20 minutes. Bring everything. Miles' office was a fortress of glass and steel, cold enough to keep the anger preserved on ice. We didn't spend days weeping over the betrayal. We spent 48 hours with a forensic accountant and a pot of black coffee. Miles didn't offer comfort, he offered ammunition. And when we walked into the courtroom 3 days later for the emergency hearing, we weren't just carrying a defense. We were carrying a nuclear warhead. The courtroom was sterile, smelling of floor wax and old paper. My parents sat on the plaintiff's side, looking like the picture of geriatric fragility. Bella dabbed her eyes with a handkerchief. Andrew wore a suit that was slightly too big, hunching his shoulders to look smaller, harmless. Karen sat behind them, glaring at the back of my head. For the first 20 minutes it looked like they were going to win. Their lawyer, a slick man who clearly charged by the syllable, painted a masterpiece of a lie. "Your Honor," he said, his voice dripping with sympathy. "These are loving parents who sacrificed their own retirement to fund their daughter's ambitions. They had a verbal agreement. They trusted her. And now she has effectively stolen their life savings to build her empire while they face destitution." The judge, a stern woman with glasses perched on the end of her nose, looked at me with thin lips. "Ms. Anderson," she said, and her tone was a reprimand. "The evidence submitted, this spreadsheet of expenses, is incredibly detailed. It suggests a clear expectation of repayment. Familial ingratitude is not a crime, but breach of contract is. I am inclined to uphold the asset freeze until a full trial." My stomach dropped. I looked at Andrew. He wasn't looking at the judge. He was looking at me, and for a split second the frail old man mask slipped. He smirked. A tiny, triumphant twitch of the lip. He thought he had me. He thought the detail of his spreadsheet, the meticulous accounting of every dollar he spent on me, was his weapon. He didn't realize it was his noose. Miles stood up. He didn't shout. He didn't pace. He simply picked up a single piece of paper. "Your Honor," Miles said, his voice cutting through the room like a scalpel. "We are not disputing the existence of the expenses. In fact, we are grateful the plaintiff was so thorough. Because by submitting this document, Exhibit A, the cost of raising Caitlin, Mr. Anderson has solved a different mystery entirely." Miles walked to the bench and handed over a file. "If the plaintiff insists that this $500,000 was a business loan and fees for services rendered over 18 years, then these payments constitute taxable income. However, we have cross-referenced this spreadsheet with Mr. Anderson's tax returns from the last 2 decades. Miles turned to look directly at Andrew. The smirk was gone. He never declared a cent of it. Furthermore, our forensic audit of his family business revealed where the money for Karen's lifestyle actually came from. It wasn't savings. Mr. Anderson has been systematically embezzling from his own employees' pension fund to cover his personal debts. He didn't sue my client because he was owed money. He sued her because he needed to fill the hole in the pension fund before the IRS found out. This is the irony of greed. It makes you meticulous about what you are owed but blind to what you owe others. Andrew wanted to use the law to rob me, but he forgot that the law works both ways. By itemizing every diaper and utility bill to prove I owed him a debt, he had created a notarized confession of his own tax fraud. He wanted to prove he was a businessman? Fine. He just proved he was a corrupt one. "You wanted to audit your daughter?" Miles asked, his voice low and lethal. "Congratulations. You just audited yourself." The air left the room. The judge's expression shifted from sympathy to disgust. She looked at the tax returns, then at the spreadsheet, then at my father. Andrew was pale, his mouth opening and closing like a fish on a dock. Bella had stopped crying, she looked terrified. "Mr. Anderson," the judge said, and this time the ice in her voice was for him. "Is this accurate?" He didn't answer. He couldn't. "Case dismissed with prejudice," the judge announced, slamming her gavel with finality. Furthermore, I am referring this matter to the IRS for a full criminal investigation. Mr. Anderson, I suggest you find a defense attorney. A real one. Andrew slumped in his chair, defeated. Bella was sobbing openly now, but it wasn't the fake, manipulative crying she usually employed. This was the raw, ugly sound of someone realizing their world was collapsing. Karen sat frozen, staring at the floor, her face a mask of shock. I didn't smile. I didn't feel triumphant. I just felt done. But I wasn't quite finished yet. Wait, I said, my voice cutting through the murmurs in the courtroom. There's one more thing. I reached into my bag and pulled out a thick envelope. Miles took it from me and handed it to the bailiff, who passed it to Andrew. What is this? Andrew asked, his voice shaking. It's a notice of eviction, I said calmly. Andrew stared at me, confusion warring with fear in his eyes. Eviction? What are you talking about? We own our house. You did, I corrected. Until 3 months ago, when the bank foreclosed on your mortgage due to non-payment. I bought the debt through a holding company. Bella looked up, her eyes wide with horror. You bought our house? I bought your debt, I said. And since you haven't made a payment in 90 days, I am exercising my right to foreclose. The sheriff is serving the eviction notice at your property right now. You have 24 hours to vacate. You can't do this. Bella shrieked, lunging towards me. It's Karen's birthday. How could you be so cruel? I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw nothing but a stranger. You tried to bankrupt me, I said. You tried to destroy my life because you felt entitled to my success. Now you know what it feels like to lose everything. I turned and walked out of the courtroom, Miles beside me. Behind me, I could hear Bella's wails and Andrew's shouts, but they sounded distant, like noise from another life. As we reached the parking lot, I expected to feel relief. Instead, I felt a sudden surge of adrenaline. Andrew burst through the courthouse doors, his face purple with rage. He sprinted towards me, fists clenched. You ungrateful little witch, he screamed. I'll kill you. I braced myself, ready to fight or flee, but then something unexpected happened. Karen, who had followed her parents out, didn't run to help her father. She didn't try to stop him. Instead, she ran to their car, the only asset they had left, and jumped into the driver's seat. She locked the doors and gunned the engine. Karen! Bella screamed, running towards the car. Karen, wait. Where are you going? Karen didn't even look at them. She peeled out of the parking lot, leaving her parents stranded on the pavement, their screams lost in the roar of the engine. I watched her go, a cold realization settling over me. They had created a monster and now it was devouring them. The golden child had abandoned the sinking ship, leaving the captains to drown. I got into my own car and drove away, leaving them there in the dust. I didn't look back. I drove straight to my office. The lights were off, but the city glowed through the windows. I sat at my desk and pulled up my contact list. Dad. Mom. Karen. I selected them all. Delete. 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 My phone felt lighter in my hand. My chest felt lighter. I checked my business dashboard. The freeze had been lifted. Orders were pouring in for the Black Friday launch. The numbers were climbing, a testament to the work I had done, the life I had built with my own hands. I wasn't just a survivor anymore. I was the architect of my own reality. Andrew and Bella were facing federal charges. They were homeless. And they were childless. They had tried to steal my destiny, but all they had done was free me from theirs. If you've ever had to build yourself from scratch because the people who were supposed to help you tried to tear you down, share this story. Let them know we're still standing.